Welcome to a very exciting lecture about reusing candles that have just about reached the end of their life. So what I have here is a selection of candles and bits of candle wax where I've had some left over when I've been melting. And as I have said to you before, when I make candles and I've got little bits left over, I put them all, I have a little collection jar because I can use this wax again. And here I have a candle that's formerly in my candle graveyard, but the wick wasn't big enough for the pot. So this is all about experimenting and learning. So I've got some of the little bit left over. And sometimes you buy those really nice scented candles and you've just got that little bit at the bottom and you can't get to it. So what I'm going to show you in this lecture is how to repurpose old candles to make some new ones. So for this, and this is the safest way to do this, you are going to need a baking tray, and I've put some baking paper in there just to protect the bottom of my tray. And we're going to put all these pots into the oven. Now, because the wax has a flash point, we're not going to be baking these at a really high temperature. We're going to take the temperature of these pots and we're going to put them in to the melt temperature of the wax. So I'm using, this is all soy wax. I know my melt temperature that I need to get to when I'm working with candles is 200 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 90 degrees Celsius. So put all your pots that you want to get the wax out of into your baking tray, and then we're going to put them in the oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 90 degrees centigrade. Here we are, ready for the oven. So now I've set the oven, I'm working in centigrade on my oven. We're set at 90 degrees centigrade, and I'm going to put all my bits of wax into the oven and leave it to melt. Okay, so whilst the wax is melting, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to prepare my wicks for my little pots. So these pots came with my candle kit that you saw me working with. And great thing about candle making, especially if you're making candles for yourself, is that you can reuse your candle containers that you've had candles in before. So I'm going to set up the wicks whilst the wax is melting, and then we'll see what we do next. So I'm using a wooden wicks. As you know, wooden wicks are my favourites because I like the crackle sound that they make when they burn. And with my wooden wick, I get my little wick support. And very simply, we just put the wooden wick into the wick support, and there it is ready to use. Now, I do have to cut this to size, and I am going to gauge my size based on the height of the wick when it's in the wick clip, because this wick clip, as you can see, has a little bit of height on it there. So I need to make sure I've got that the right size. So taking my wick against my pot to lean it against the edge there, and I want that to be no taller than the height of my pot because I've got to put a lid on it. So take it up to the height of the pot, and then put a little mark on this side, and then I cut. And I'm just going to do a little test with that. That should be sitting in there nicely. And I'm going to do a lid test. Oh, these are so beautiful, these little pots. They've got all the horoscope symbol around them. I love them. And my lid will go on. So I know I've cut that to the right height. So my candle pots have been in there now for about 10 minutes, and you can already see where it's already starting to melt. Now it's a nice gentle way of remelting the wax so that you can reuse it. And it's better that it's slow and steady with this. Now I could use the double boiler method for doing this, but we have pots sort of floating around, and these pots that I'm using are specifically designed for candle making. So they are, especially when you're working with glass, if you're trying to melt that glass pot in a double boiler, you'll have a problem with it because the glass keeps the heat out from the water as it should do. So once your wax is melted, you can see in my pots here, these are a little bit hot. So it's melted, but I need to, first of all, take out my wicks that are at the bottom, and I can really do that very easily using a pair of tweezers. I can either do this before I start or at the end, so I'm going to just take my wicks out. There they are, 2, 3, come on baby. And this is the wooden wick. Now that comes out really nice and easily, and I am going to clean that up and use that again. So it's just going to sit there on the side for the minute. So your wax is now ready to be used, but is it? What is a really good idea is that often when you get to the bottom of a burn, your wax will have little bits of detritus from possibly wicks as they've burnt. It's a really good idea to sieve your melted wax through either, I've got a muslin here that I'm going to use, but you could use a coffee filter to do that too. So filter it through there. It's going into a jug below, and then I'm simply going to pour that into my candles and reuse and make my new candles. What you might like to do before you pour any of your melted wax into your pot is to heat it up, because it's metal and it's cold. So you can either do that by running it over with a hairdryer or a heat gun, or you can put it in the oven to warm up slightly. Once you've filtered your melted wax, you can give it a stir. And because I've got some scented candles that I've repurposed in here, the smells all coming out into the room are really lovely. So give it a stir, and then you simply pour into your little pots. Oh, I've got light pink, all my colours have come together. Very pretty. 2, 3. And I've got a little bit wax left over, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that into one of my pots to save for another melt. You'll need to leave those for 48 hours to set before you burn them. Perfect.